Thank you, everybody, for coming on this December day. Meg, if you want to kick things off, I think we can get started.
Absolutely. Thank you so much and welcome everybody. We're so excited to see you. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander. I am, as always, honored and excited to get to host another Power to Fly virtual event. Today, we're going to be discussing mitigating AI hiring hurdles. I know y'all were not anticipating seeing me today, but unfortunately, we did have a family emergency with our guests, so we will be rebooking with Christy later. We just won't be able to do that until the new year reaches us. So thank you for your patience, but we wanted to make sure that we, kept up all of our appointments for the year. So we're very excited to see all of you here joining us today. Now, we're going to be discussing mitigating AI hiring hurdles. Before we dive in there, I do just really briefly want to flash our code of conduct on the screen for y'all. This looks like a big scary wall of legalese, but truly what it boils down to is just don't be a jerk. As long as we operate from a place of kindness and respect, it's very hard to go wrong from there. But if you have any follow-up questions, you want more details on this code of conduct, please feel free to reach out to us. You can either DM me in the chat. You can find my name. I'll just change it. I just realized I'm still listed as Powerfly Chat and Learn. But I'll change it in the chat. You can DM me directly, or you can always reach out to our help desk inbox. That inbox is hi at powerfly.com. All right. Now, if you are looking to earn SHRM credits from today's event, you're going to want to refer to the code that's on the slide in front of you. Today's SHRM code is 25ADB72. All right, now to the main portion of today's event. I'm very excited to introduce you to the stage, our own fabulous Rob Rebar. Now, Rob is the Director of Events and Marketing. He is a New York-based professional with over 15 years of experience in programming inclusive content, community engagement, executing dynamic events, and comprehensive marketing campaigns. He has been my fearless leader for years upon years, and you are absolutely going to enjoy listening to him today. Now, he currently leads our marketing and events, including our year-end virtual summit series. Now, at Power to Fly, Rob has produced events for American Express, Meta, Morgan Stanley, Microsoft, and Slack, just to name a few. Now, prior to joining Power to Fly, Rob served as production coordinator at DKC/Hangar 4, working on events for Pixar, Jaguar, Land Rover, FanDuel, L'Oreal, and producing the reopening of the Hudson Theater on Broadway. Rob, I'm so excited to get to interact with you on stage today. Usually I just get to interact with you behind the scenes, but very excited to welcome you to the stage today.
Thank you so much, Meg. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm sorry that Christy couldn't be here. As Meg said, we will be rebooking her. She had a family emergency, but I did want to carry on today's conversation since I helped shape this with Christy. So we'll jump on in. If you want to go to the next slide there, Meg. Just real quickly, just want to tell you, anyone who's uninitiated about Power to Fly, we help organizations attract top talent and retain engaged employees with solutions that simplify recruiting, enhance employee satisfaction, and drive long-term business success. And the information I'm going to share today, one half is going to apply to the employers who might be on the line or listening to this recording, and one might be to the job seeker. So I'm going to try to kind of span both realms in my talk today. And then I'm going to start off with some stats just to give you an idea of what is happening out there in the industry. And then we'll take some of the questions you pre-submitted, or if you have any live questions, feel free to throw those into the chat. But without further ado, Meg, if you want to jump to the next slide, that'd be great. So I want to talk a little bit about the changing terrain of hiring in the age of AI. Obviously, AI were the two letters that were on everyone's lips in 2025 and probably will still be in 2026. And we all know hiring has always had some blind spots, but now AI has really opened some serious gaps in vetting. And whether you are a talent acquisition professional or a hiring manager, or you're someone who's looking for new opportunity, you might have experienced this yourself and unfortunately might continue to experience it as we head into the new year. So candidates may leverage generative tools from the kind of more benign like ChatGPT to things like Copilot coding assistants and deepfakes to present stronger skills that might be strong or seem stronger than they actually are. And there's also really big, broad impacts on DIB, on talent quality, on culture, security, and employer branding if these remain unaddressed. And I'll go a little more into detail into those now. So let's go to the next slide and talk a bit about cheating and misrepresentation of skills. So 81% of FANG interviewers, that's with FANG companies, believe AI cheating is occurring. One third of them have actually caught it directly. And cheating, that can have a very broad term from, again, the more maybe benign to the more serious. And one example is the actual tool Interview Coder, which I'll talk about more in a second. That was built to actually generate real-time answers during remote interviews. If you've used Interview Coder, or perhaps you're familiar with it, you can let us know in the chat. But one thing I thought was really interesting was that nearly 48% of candidates admit to using an unauthorized AI tool during technical assessments. So we're not talking about ChatGPT really, we're talking about these more advanced tools. Over 60% of engineering and TA leaders view assessment security as their top concern of 2025. And of course, I'm sure that will continue on in 2026. Let me tell you a little bit more actually about that tool I mentioned, Interview Coder, on this next slide. So this was actually developed by a 21-year-old who launched Interview Coder, and this actually listens to live interview questions, generates code in real time, and supplies answers to candidates that they can recite. And it's really designed to be, quote unquote, undetectable. So this is actually a $60 a month AI tool that listens to those questions, generates that real-time answer. And the scale of use, it's actually being used by thousands of candidates. The founder is actually projecting a $1 million in revenue by 2025. And the impact is really being expressed all throughout different companies. Hiring managers are reporting candidates giving this perfect coding answer, but are unable to explain it. And of course, whether you're a hiring manager or you are a candidate who's applying who actually does have these skills, these kind of tools can be very detrimental to you, whether you're applying for a role or you're looking to hire someone. One hiring manager actually said this quote, "I'll hear a long pause, a little and suddenly there's a perfect answer. But when I ask them to explain their thought process, they struggle." So that's one way we're here seeing AI affecting the application process, this kind of cheating misrepresentation of skills. Now let's talk about bots and fake application flooding. So we can go to the next slide here. And you can actually see that 36% of HR professionals say most job seekers use AI to craft application materials. So a lot of us have used that, a lot of the tools, LinkedIn and whatnot, are even encouraging it. But it actually goes deeper than that. 36% believe most job seekers use AI to enhance those materials, but a majority, 58%, feel it is ethical for candidates to use AI during the job search. So not really a huge concern there, but 71% are concerned about AI skewing the results of skills tests, kind of going back to what we just talked about. And 66% approve of use of AI for resume creation. Now, that's all kind of good. That's the more, again, like the more benign version. But what we are seeing, and this is really harmful for both companies that are hiring as well as job applicants, are some of these tools like AI Hawk. This allows you to bulk apply to roles. As you can see here on the screen, someone said, "I applied to 2,843 roles with basically a click of a button." What this does, though, is it jams up the inboxes of recruiters and hiring managers. So they're getting these thousands of applications, most of which are not a good fit for their roles. And if you are a good fit for that role and you're applying, well, your job application might not be getting seen to the same extent because there's all these basic bots that are up. Unfortunately, some estimates are that by 2028, 25% of candidate profiles themselves might be fake. So this is a big issue for folks to tackle. And the last kind of big pillar here is on this next slide, and that's cybersecurity risk via the hiring process. So this is kind of the most extreme thing that we're seeing, which are candidates aren't just cheating necessarily with these AI tools, but there's actually this emergent risk where the assessment itself gets weaponized. So, for example, in one campaign, researchers found fake coding test packages that actually contained malware. So a lot of applicants are actually using the interview process or the technical interview process to actually embed this malware. So again, this is not probably the most common thing that we're seeing, but it is happening. And a survey of 837 recruiters in India actually cited that malpractices by candidates during the online assessments is one of their biggest fear. Meg, if we want to jump just a couple of slides forward, one more there. Yeah, so let's just talk real quick before we kind of move into some of your questions. So what are some of the immediate and or long-term steps that businesses can take that can really benefit both themselves and the job applicants? So let's go to the next slide. And I just kind of walk through here what some of the immediate, midterm, and long-term things are. So really in the immediate, really review that current hiring funnel, identify roles with high risk. Those might be the remote roles, technical roles, high volume roles. Audit your vendor platforms for assessments. Are they, how secure are they? Are they using anti-cheating mechanisms? And then establish process for one high priority role. So start maybe just focus on one role and see, okay, what is happening with this one role? Because if we can see what's happening there, we might be able to apply it to some other roles. Then kind of in the midterm, you can really start looking at the alignment with inclusion as well, because that's one thing that we're seeing. The less with these kind of influx of these various tools, underrepresented talent might be getting the short end of the stick. So I think you can really kind of start to look at that in the midterm. And then in the long term, I think what's really important is building the governance around this, building what your framework is. What is your policy? How are you monitoring this? Not just like once a year, but once a month, once a quarter. How are you looking at how this is affecting your work, and also looking at what benchmarks there are from best practices and collaborations with your peers. But all of this is to really say this is a time to engage the C-suite and your ERGs. It's not just a talent acquisition problem, it is a whole company-wide issue as well. So hope that was helpful just to kind of see what a lay of the land is there. But Meg, if you want to stop sharing, we can go into some of the questions that got pre-submitted. And if you have any other live questions, please drop those into the chat. Whether you are a talent acquisition professional, hiring manager on that end of the line, or if you're someone who's applying and seeing that, am I being stopped by AI? I love to hear from both of you.
I love this. I'm very excited about this area. I've got a lot of friends who are job hunting right now, so very, very interested in this as well. All right, let's talk about big picture. What are some of the implications of AI in hiring for organizations?
Yeah, well, I think, as I said, like the biggest aspect right now is that a lot of talent especially feel that they are not being seen. Now, that may or may not actually be the case, but it certainly is the perception. And I think what's really important for businesses there is that to retain that human touch. So no one will begrudge you if you're using AI to sort through these applications. As I said, when you're getting 2,000 bot applications, you need AI to sort through them. But at the same time, you then need to make sure that you're following up with a candidate with a personal letter, that you're reaching out to them, and it's not just a one size fits all for those issues. And on the candidate side, I think you need to be extra vigilant now about all the other things that kind of surround application. Is your resume looking like very standard enough that it's good to make sure that it's going through any ATSs that you're doing, application tracking systems, in that way? This is not the time to kind of experiment with those things. You do want to make sure you're going through and making sure, am I hitting the language that this that this job that this JD might have? Because if my language is straying too far from that, I might be disqualified based on some of those kind of AI things. And I think this is the other thing, just like looking at that kind of tools that are people using to kind of blanket things. I know it's, people really want to get hired out there, but you're not doing yourself a favor, or you're not doing the talent acquisition folks a favor if you're just kind of blasting it out and applying to every role that's out there. We always say here at Power to Fly, you don't need to hit all of the requirements in order to apply. In fact, apply even if you don't hit all those. That's great. But at the same time, if you know you're totally not a fit for this role, like, don't apply to it, because you're just clogging up the system for somebody else, for that talent acquisition manager. And then when you do find a role that's a great fit for you at that company, you're going to kind of be in that system already as like, oh no, they weren't a great fit for this other role. Like, so don't tarnish your own reputation there by reaching out to something that isn't a great fit for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's a really good point. Oh, we got a lot of reverb going on, so I'm gonna mute you while I'm speaking and see if that helps. Um, but I think this sounds really familiar because obviously I host a lot of these from the candidate side as opposed to the business side. And so a lot of what I'm hearing from people is that, they're worried about applying to roles and then like not being considered, but that makes a ton of sense, right? Yes, you want to cast a wide net. Yes, you want to go for the things that interest you, but you want to make sure that you are doing it smartly. So that way, if somebody does go through and take a look and see like, oh, okay, well, Meg applied for 8 roles yesterday and they all make a lot of sense because they're kind of all in the same area and that tracks. Or Meg applied for 8 roles yesterday and they are all over the company and don't really seem to relate to each other. So where are we going here? Like what is the story that you're telling with it, I guess? I think that's a really good way of looking
Yeah,
at
I
it.
think going back to what, and I'm now on my headphones, so hopefully this is better. But I think you're right. I think storytelling there is the key. What is the story that you want to tell in your own career journey? And that's going back to the human touch angle, because yes, we want to go through the AI hurdles that we might have, but at the same time, you then want to tell that human journey to the person, that, flesh and blood person that is reading your resume, your cover letter, or what have you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so let's say I have AI skills, right? Let's move past, the AI within the recruitment area. And let's talk about like showing off those skills. If I have AI skills, like research skills or whatever, what is the best way to showcase that to potential employers?
Well, I think one thing is listing out a lot of the tools that you're using, because there's a lot of AI tools right now. I mean, there's a new AI tool on the market every day. So I would definitely spell out which tools that you are familiar with, and then you can even give examples of how that you've used those. Because a lot of us might know ChatGPT or something like that. Maybe you're less familiar with Perplexity or something along those lines, or Sora, or these other new tools that are coming. And I'm certainly not an expert on what all those tools are, but I think having it be very clear what those are. It's kind of almost going back to the days when, maybe you weren't just putting like word processing on, but then it's like, oh, you need to break down. It's like, no, I'm actually know a lot about Excel. It's not just like a one size fits all thing of like, I'm good at AI, but like, no, what tools are you actually able to use there?
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point because I mean, I feel like it used to be like, well, are you good at computers? And that's just not how we say, you know what I mean? Like that's not how the conversation goes anymore. And so I think it is really good to not only not only we kind of have that list of like, here's the things that I use, but also like you can then you can have an opportunity to open up and have more storytelling capacity and say like, and here's how I'm using it, or here's why I started using them in the first place. I was against it, but now I'm blah 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 blah. Like there's opportunities there.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think, and I would just say too, like if there's anything, any certifications that you have, that's something that we're seeing a lot now for AI. Skill Crush by Power to Fly, which is our kind of sister company, has AI prompting courses. So if you've taken anything along those lines, courses or gotten that certification, then that's definitely something that you want to highlight in your resume. And as you said, Meg, I think that's kind of where you just hint at it. And then once you get into that interview process, that's where you can kind of tell the greater story about how you've actually used those tools.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. All right. If people are trying to keep up with rapidly evolving AI related hiring trends, what should they know about? Because I mean, this is something that is moving so quickly that it could be a full-time job just keeping up to date on the changes that are happening.
Well, the biggest trend that I didn't address in those opening slides that we're really starting to see right now is the AI interviewer. So that you are actually interviewing with AI. This is something that we've seen a lot in high volume roles. So things like retail, customer service, stuff that there's a lot of changeover and it is a high volume role. But now we're really starting to see it for those more, white collar roles that previously it's like, no, there's no way that you could be interviewing with AI for this senior role. No, it's happening now. And it's not going to be happening. It's already happening. And I think as we continue to go down that route, you're going to see even more of that. And it reminds me of how a few years ago, no one was ever interviewing. Maybe you had a phone interview, but you were never interviewing over Zoom. And it was always an in person interview. And now a lot of that it has changed. And of course, there's certain ways that we just monitor body language and you speak differently and things like that. So I think that's something we're all kind of going to get used to. And a lot of companies are actually balancing different things. So maybe it might be an all remote company. But in order to avoid some of those kind of cheating aspects that I mentioned earlier, they're bringing back the in person interview. So don't be surprised that after all these years where everything's been remote for a lot of folks, that there is going to be this in person element to the interview process, to the technical interview process, because they do want to make sure that you are following all the rules. And another thing that we've seen too is if it isn't in person, if it is remote, that company might ask you certain requirements. So one thing we've seen actually in an executive forum we hosted on this subject, a company actually said they are doing this now, which is they are requiring you to have a camera on your face and a camera on your screen to make sure that you are not going to some of these tools that I mentioned. They want to see you doing the work. And then you have the camera on your face to make sure that you're not looking at the answers that might be on another screen someplace else, right? So again, like this is not something that you as the job applicant would have probably had to deal with a year ago, but it won't be surprised if this is the kind of thing that you're asked to do. And if you're on the hiring side, like these might be the things that you want to start thinking about if you're running into any of the AI hiring hurdles that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Okay. Um, all right. Here's one of the questions that I have because I have a lot of friends who are in the art world who are, shall we say, conscientious objectors.
Hmm.
They have whatever. It's neither here nor there. But if you are a person who does not have a ton of AI experience, but you want to position yourself as AI literate, how do you thread that needle between making sure that you are being accurate about like what you do know without overstating any expertise?
Hmm.
Especially if you are one of those people that is like not real eager to pick these skills up.
Yes. And certainly I was one of those same people. I think someone who writes and creative and comes from creative background, like I'm still trepidatious about certain things, but I think the biggest thing that you can do is like you don't need to jump into like the deep end of the pool. Like you can start wading in. One thing I've heard in some of the other conversations we've done around this topic is that people are still thinking that they're going to like break the AI, like go into generative AI tool. And it's like, oh no, I did it wrong. Like there's no wrong. Like the nice thing with this
That's
right
like doing
now.
Instagram wrong. Like that
Exactly.
doesn't,
Yeah.
it's not a thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's actually so similar to that, I think, because if you think back 20 years ago, a lot of us were like, oh my God, social media, like, oh, I'm scared. And now it's such a part of our lives, but we all like waded into that shallow end first. So I would
Yeah.
just bring up whatever the generative AI tool that you want to use and just start playing around with it. And like if you are one of those people who, as you said, conscious objector, like you don't have to tell anybody, like you can just play around with it for yourself and then quickly you can learn more. And the nice thing is so many of us are in the same boat right now. Like things are moving so quickly. And yes, there are people that are huge experts on these subjects, but at the same time there's much more people. There's the 90% of the rest of us that are still learning it at the exact same time as everybody else.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of people that are also kind of liking some of the throwbackness, right? Like the idea that we would go back to in person in some areas. I think it is really important. We do have a question from the chat. Tiffany is asking, I was wondering if you have any advice for those of us who are fully qualified for jobs but feel like we're unable to get through an interview. So I like this question. This is a difficult one. But if you are one of those people that feels like you are kind of up against a glass wall, um, what do you recommend for these people? Is there a way to utilize AI to change up the way that you
Hmm.
are doing your interviewing? Is there a different way to kind of like reframe the issue that you're working with? And what have you heard in hiring circles about this kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, I think AI is a great interviewing tool for practice beforehand. Like you can put into your generative AI tool, this is the role I'm applying for, this is the company, what could be some of the questions that they're going to ask me during the interview. And you could then have that as a way to kind of look that, and then you could have your own responses and put that into the AI and see what the AI says. Now, again, it's a computer. It's not going to, is it a substitute for a human being? No, not necessarily, but it's still going to give you an idea. Like we'll often write copy or create a piece of artwork and then send it into, a chat GPT and say like, give us your feedback on it. Like, is this easy to read? What sentence stands out to you? And so you could use those tools. And then I think on the other end, what I'd say to Tiffany is like, go back to like that core also term of storytelling and do your networking before the interview as well. Reach out to someone who's at the company and say, you know what, I've got an interview scheduled for this day. I'm really excited about it. I love to hear like what do you say the top challenges are at the company? Like, or what are you looking to prioritize in 2026? Like, get that research, or, if you can't reach out to a human being on LinkedIn or something like that, like, do your deep dives on their websites, on YouTube videos that might have featured those leaders, something like that. Go, if it's a company that's on Power to Fly, go on their Power to Fly page, look at what other past events they've done. You can watch their YouTubes with us, uh, all that kind of information. So definitely kind of doing that research is super important, maybe more than ever before. But the good thing is it's all at your fingertips. Oh, I think your mic's off, Meg.
Thank you. We are just about out of time, but if there's only one thing that people remember from today's session, what do you want that one thing they take with them to be?
I would say that AI is changing all the time. That, there's a lot of big pieces right now in the news where it's like doom and gloom or it's the best thing ever on earth. And the real solution is probably somewhere in between that, but it's changing all the time. So like, and there's no wrong answer right now. So this is the time to experiment, to have fun, to fail at times, and also to, kind of play around. Being, oh, AI is being used in dentistry. I saw just someone say in the chat. So yeah, it's always around. So yeah, that's what I would do. Like, read everything that you can, play around, and know that tomorrow that tool that you're using might be obsolete and we might be onto another tool.
Yeah, I like this. Okay. Rob, I want to say thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with us today. This has been absolutely wonderful. I always love a chance to get to hang out with you. And big thank you to all of our audience members as well. Y'all just took 30 minutes out of your day to do something positive for yourself and your career. That is not easy. Okay. So whether you are a little treat person or not, listen to Meg, give yourself the gold star, pat on the back, coffee drink, whatever it is. And truly, y'all, thank you for spending time with us today. We very much appreciate you spending time with Power of Fly.
Thank you all. And we're actually hosting another chat tomorrow on AI. So if you want even more info, pop into that. But if we don't see you, have a great